All right, everyone. How do we feel tonight? It's a Monday night, and we are sprinting to the finish of college football. Can you believe it? I don't know where you live, and I don't know what the temperature is, but I know for much of the country, especially here in the Midwest and a number of places in the country, it started to feel like winter. Unfortunately, started to feel like winter here in the last few days. And when it starts to feel like winter, we know that college football is not for long, unfortunately. But let's embrace and cherish the final few weeks, and we get into bowl season and the playoffs and the bowl games and all of that. But in regards to regular season games, and I just finished up a Nebraska Live, and for Husker fans, no hopes of a bowl game at 3-7. So if you root for a team like Nebraska, you already can write off the season. That's what it is. So, hey, let's sprint toward the finish. Let's embrace as much as we can for the final couple weeks. It should be a whole lot of fun. And run through college football. I've left the link there in the live chat. Of course, we can talk about my top 25 that actually makes sense if you'd like, but we can talk about anything on the map concerning college football. Otherwise, I will give you my thoughts about the landscape and what's going on right now. We posted Big Ten power rankings just a few hours ago, so check those out right here on the main channel. Over on the Clemson, Florida State, and Miami channels, we're posting ACC power rankings, and we're going to post more power rankings across college football and get to as many topics as possible over the next few days, including I was working on this, which is the Big Ten Western Division scenarios. There's 4 teams in the Big Ten Western Division that are 4-3. And there's one team, Wisconsin, that's 3-4, and they've got a shot to still win the division. So 5 teams still in play with 2 games left, and it's a mess. Do you know that the 3-way tiebreaker system, I don't want to call myself an expert on it, but I went through it pretty thoroughly. And yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess. It's a fun mess. That's a fun mess. That's better than the ACC, where Clemson's already won with 2 games left to play in the Atlantic, and North Carolina's already won the Coastal Division. It's over. The ACC's those 2 teams. All right, welcome into the Voice of College Football. Let's see who's on the line. Who is on the line? What's going on tonight?
Hey, hi Mark, how are you doing?
Here we go. It's Mike. What's going on tonight?
Just freezing.
I know. I am too.
So I'm wearing my thick. It was kind of like an early Christmas present for me. I got. You ever heard of those Snuggies?
I've heard of them. Yes, they're like a full body deal. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's like a blanket with sleeves, except this one is actually like it doesn't just go over you to like encapsulate you. It's like a huge plush pullover shirt, I guess. It's really warm.
Very cool.
So, still sticking to the TCU at 2, huh?
TCU at 2. Why would I not stick to that? They just beat Texas. They control the game.
Texas is 6-4 now, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, it just kind of seems like.
Why would I have dropped at TCU after what happened Saturday?
I think it just kind of confirms my suspicion that I've had at the beginning of the season that Big 12 is just terrible. I mean, I don't like giving them credit because it's the same reason, I had the same justification as to why you should keep a lot of Pac teams out, because before this season, I think for the last 4 or 5 seasons, the Pac-12 was the worst division in Power 5, and I don't think it was even close. So I always made that argument as to why you should kind of exclude the Pac from being ever in the playoffs, regardless of record, unless somebody just runs a table, and obviously that's going to happen because there's no team in the Pac that's kind of running away with it.
And well, if you're talking about my rankings, I don't take into consideration what's happened in the past. It's all about this season.
And you still think that TCU is better than Ohio State and Michigan?
No.
Okay. Let me rephrase that. You think they're
they have a better resume.
You think they have a better resume?
I sure do.
And are you just basing on the fact that you think that the Big 12 is not a terrible conference right now?
If you compare the Big 12's out of conference results against the Big 10, I'd have to run through it again, but the Big 12 was probably slightly better. Who did the Big 10 beat for us to have any confidence that the Big 10 is any good?
Notre Dame, Auburn.
Auburn. You're going with Auburn.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that they look like a better win early
I
in the
can
season.
only, Mike, let me put it this way. When we came into the season, I thought clearly, okay, the SEC is still the best. The Big 10 is the second best. Actually, when we entered the season, this was the first time ever that I thought there was a clear number 1, clear number 2, clear number 3, clear 4, and clear 5. With the Pac-12, yeah, at the bottom because they have been the worst for 5-6 years. And the ACC was the second worst, and the Big 12 was third, Big 10, SEC. But if I'm trying to be fair, which I am, and not place into the argument what I think, but place into the argument simply what happened on the field, the Big 10 doesn't have much of an argument as the second best conference. Now, that could change when we start playing bowl games, and especially in the playoffs, especially if they get 2 teams in the playoffs, then that evaluation could change decidedly. But for right now, beating Notre Dame, Boston College, Auburn, Colorado, and Virginia, that's it. And losing to Iowa State.
Yeah, I do think that if they played
anyway,
that game again, I think Iowa would probably win. But it's hard for me to. It's almost as if I just kind of want to, discount anything that the Big 10 West did because they are just so horrible, and they're kind of dragging us down, to be honest.
Well, you're kind of confirming my point. If you truly believe that's half the conference is horrible.
Yeah,
Rutgers and Indiana are certainly not that good. So we're up to 9 teams out of 14 that are horrible.
I don't know if I'd go horrible.
Okay. I don't think they're horrible either. If you're talking about Iowa or Minnesota or a few others.
I guess I'm kind of making the same argument. I think that the word you use for the Big 12 is parity, isn't it?
Yes. There's parity.
And I guess that's kind of the argument. Now, I've kind of softened on the Big 10 West. I mean, I kept, maybe it's just a Big 10 guy in me, but I kept saying for the longest part of the season that the ACC Coastal was worse than the Big 10 West. And it's getting to the point now that I can't make that argument anymore.
It's hard to make an argument either way. I couldn't make an argument either way because Virginia and Virginia Tech are horrible teams.
Yeah. Boston College as well.
Average. Boston College is in the other division.
Oh, I thought Boston College was Coastal.
Boston College is in the other division.
They're Atlantic?
In the Atlantic.
Okay.
Yep. North Carolina is the best team. They're by far the best team, and they're a good team. They're not a great team. They're not an elite team, but they're good. And then there's no other good teams. Duke's actually might be the second best team. They probably are the second best team, and nobody else is any good. Pitt's okay, and then the other ones are awful.
Yeah, I mean, the only kind of saving grace of Pitt is that they gave Tennessee a run for their money early in the season.
They did. Yeah.
But other than that, Pitt's been a bit disappointing, I would say. So I guess. So what do you think of all your Pac-12 clan like Prangley and all them kind of trying to bump up the Pac-10? I think as of Saturday the Pac-10 is out of the playoff conversation.
Well, yeah, Saturday really hurt. It's USC or bust, and that doesn't mean USC is going to make it if they win those last 3 games. But
not with their schedule.
Well, they've got an awful schedule too. But the awful part of the schedule ends Saturday.
Well, I actually mean like the schedule isn't like coming up. I mean, I don't think there's any way they're going to win all 3 of these games because they've got kind of a death row coming up.
Yeah,
They got what,
they do.
UCLA, Notre Dame, and then has Oregon officially won the North yet, or is that still kind of a?
There is no North or South. It's the top two
Oh
teams.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But this is what USC needs. You're looking at it as this is going to kill their season. And you're right. It's going to be, the odds say that they can't win 3 consecutive games against 3 good teams, but this is the opportunity they need. This is the resume builder they need.
And I'm guessing that, I think it's kind of the anti-SEC homers, that, because I know that the Real thinks that Tennessee at 11-1 that doesn't even make the SEC championship probably gets in over 12-1 USC that wins the pack, and I don't see that connection, to be honest.
Well, I think they have a better resume, but I hope the committee is going to select the team that won a conference.
Yeah, well, and I know that historically the committee has also given a lot of consideration to that 13th data point.
Well, they should, yeah. When teams have to go out and play an extra game, even if you don't consider a conference championship, it's an extra game against a quality team. And so those teams are risking losing. Yeah. When Alabama sits at home in 2017, or Ohio State in 2016, or whomever this year, Tennessee, there's no risk of losing when you sit on the sideline. So you should be penalized for that.
Yeah, and the only thing I could say is that in the 2 previous times you're talking about, when Alabama and LSU got their rematch after LSU beat them in the regular season, then Ohio State, whenever Penn State won the Big Ten, those 2 teams were clearly a top 4 team, and I don't think Tennessee is.
So they're not clearly a top 4 team. I believe that they are.
Like I said, Pitt took them to overtime. Florida came this close. The Georgia game, Georgia beat them worse than the score indicated.
Yeah, they did.
They kind of won a controversial game against Bama at home. And I think can we say now that Bama is not an elite team now?
No, I can't say that.
You still going to think they have an argument for being elite?
Yes.
I guess we kind of stray on that one.
They've lost to 2 excellent teams in the last play of the game on the road.
And I take it you're not discounting them for Texas or A&M either?
No, or I would have to discount a lot of other teams. I'd have to discount Pitt or Tennessee for going to Pitt and going to overtime. Do I discount that Michigan beat Maryland by a touchdown?
Well, I also like to point out that Michigan was up 15 points with less than a minute left.
Yeah. But you could also say Maryland couldn't catch a kickoff that gave Michigan a gift of a touchdown, or they intercepted the ball with the foot out of bounds. There's a lot of plays in that game where Michigan shouldn't have intercepted a pass that if replay would have watched the game and reviewed the play, there were a lot of things that went against Maryland in that game, and Maryland's showing us not to be very good themselves.
Yeah, I mean, when Penn State blanked them, that wasn't a good look for us, and I admit, we didn't play our best game with Maryland.
No. JJ's second start.
Yeah, and I fully understand that. Well, the thing is that no team is without their warts, and even with Georgia, with the Missouri and Kent State. That's why I said that I think there's a lot of people thinking that Georgia's like last year. I thought Georgia was pretty much as close to being invincible as you could get. I discount the SEC championship because it's hard to get up for that game, because win or lose, they were in the playoffs.
Yeah, so that's a good argument, but the counter to that is that they could have eliminated Bama. Why would you not be up for that game to eliminate Bama, to eliminate the best team that you could play and get them out of the playoff?
I'm not sure they were
championship because they lost the SEC championship.
I'm not sure that Alabama was the second best team in the country. I think they benefited from the fact that they got to play, the little sister of the poor that got in there in Cincinnati.
You don't think Alabama was the second best team in the country last year?
No.
They were missing two of the best wide receivers in the country, and they led Georgia with 5 minutes left in the game. Who else would have done that? I can't think of anyone.
I think Ohio State probably could have given them a run for the money last year.
With that defense, I don't think so.
Well, and I mean, I know we beat them pretty comfortably last year, but that was also something that, if you played that game, a handful more times, we don't beat them every time, especially not by 15.
Sure. Yeah.
And I can't really make the argument for us because, we kind of stunk it up against Georgia. Fortunately, we, kind of shored up our quarterback problem.
I think those two teams were far and away the best teams in the country last year. I think they were on their own tier.
And Alabama, I think they've fallen off pretty good too. So, what are you thinking about Clemson's chances? Or do you think they're officially out?
No, they're not out. If
do you think them beating Carolina is good enough to put them in the conversation?
It should be. I hope it is. I don't know why we're playing conference championship games. Well, let's say the Pac-12 eliminates itself, and let's say that Georgia wins the SEC.
Yeah.
And let's say there's a decisive Ohio State Michigan winner. So the loser loses by 15 points. Well, you've got Georgia's in, and TCU, let's say they lose the Big 12 championship game, or they lose any game. Clemson's being compared to a one-loss Tennessee that didn't win a conference, a one-loss Ohio State or Michigan that didn't win the conference, and a TCU that lost a game as well.
Well, I think the committee has made it kind of clear that TCU has to run the table or they're out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're ranking them where they were. I mean, they were behind, multiple one-loss teams.
Yeah, so the Pac-12 and the Big 12 could be easily eliminated.
And I guess I keep wanting to say that the Pac-12 has kind of played itself out, but I guess if USC does beat UCLA, then Notre Dame, then whoever the next team, I guess that could be the shot in the arm that gets them in.
I hope that the committee hasn't eliminated anyone. I think that they all should be considered where they stand right now, meaning Clemson, North Carolina, Ohio State, Michigan, Tennessee, LSU, Tennessee, with Georgia, TCU, and USC. What's that? 10 teams? 8 teams?
Well, I'm taking LSU out of the conversation because they've got to have a little bit of a miracle.
Yeah, they will be a decided underdog, but shoot, we've seen more egregious upsets than that.
Yeah, that's true. Plus, I've always been under the impression that 2 losses got to be. I know it's the SEC and everybody loves the SEC and worships the SEC, but 2 losses should get you out. I would take a 1-loss Tennessee that didn't play for the championship than take a 2-loss SEC that won it. Especially whenever Tennessee went down to Baton Rouge and just beat the snot out of them.
Yeah, they did. So if LSU wins the SEC and they beat Georgia, then what do you do with Georgia if you're leaving out LSU?
Georgia's in.
You're leaving Georgia in after they lose an SEC championship game, and you're not going to include the team that beat them.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, see, I don't agree with that.
I think Georgia has proven that they belong unless they just lay some mysterious egg from here to the end of the season. Because, like I said, as short as they were, they went to Columbia and, beat the hell out of South Carolina. They beat Tennessee pretty soundly. They've every game they were supposed to win, they did. And they played a lot of good teams already, and much of them were not close at the end of the fourth quarter. So I would give them a slip up, even if it is in the SEC championship game.
Okay, so you're not a conference championship guy then?
I think it plays a factor, but I don't think it's kind of the be-all, end-all. Because like I said, I agreed with, Ohio State getting over Penn State in 2016, even though Penn State did beat them.
Okay.
And that left them with a sim. In fact, that was even probably more egregious for you because they both ended the season with one loss.
Penn State had 2.
I thought Penn State was 12-1, not 11-2. Or were they?
They lost to Pitt in Michigan.
Oh, I thought they beat Pitt. Okay. Wow. So yeah.
Yeah, they lost twice.
Okay.
Yeah, if they would have lost once, they were. The committee would not have left out Penn State if they won the Big Ten championship, beat Ohio State, and had the same record or a better record at 12-1. No.
Yeah. And I remember that was the year that, when they played us, wasn't that the year that we just crushed them?
Yes.
It was like 49-7 or something.
Yeah, they had a bad loss. I think 42-10, and they lost to Pitt. Yeah.
Okay. So you still got what? 10 games? 10 teams that you can still make a case for?
I'm going to make a case. Yeah. Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson, North Carolina is 4, 3 in the SEC, 7, 9 teams.
You think Carolina's got a shot?
I think they should.
Wow. Where are they ranked now? Like 12, 13?
Yeah, something like that. If they're 12-1 and they win a conference championship.
Now that's one you can talk about schedules. They have no good wins on their.
Nope, they don't. Well, depending on if we're talking about teams like Ohio State and Michigan having good wins against Iowa and Wisconsin or whomever else, then North Carolina beating Duke is a good win, and beating Wake Forest is a good win.
Didn't Wake have like 3 losses now?
4.
Yeah, that's even worse. Carolina's their schedule is dismal. At least we can brag about a Penn State.
Yeah. It's a bad schedule. They got NC State in 2 weeks, and they got a championship game. Well, no, I don't think they're going to make it, and they would have the weakest resume, and I would leave them out if all things were equal. But I'm just saying, do I think they've got a shot? Yeah, if the Pac-12 eliminates itself and the Big 12 eliminates itself, if TCU loses a game and then they lose the Big 12 championship, you got a 2 or 3 loss Big 12 champion, etc.
Yeah, a lot of dominoes got to fall for that. Plus,
a lot of chaos.
And NC State, that's not going to be considered a good win because without that quarterback, they're a mediocre team. I think he's gone for the season, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. He hasn't played in quite some time.
Yeah. So even if they beat NC State, that's really not going to be a good win for them.
No, it's not. But again, to my point, if we've got multiple loss teams in the Big 12 and the Pac-12, and it comes down to 3 conferences and 4 slots, then they're a conference champion. They should be in.
At this point, the committee would say even TCU with 1 loss gets in over Carolina with 1 loss.
Well, yeah. I said 2-loss Pac-12 and Big 12 champions.
Oh, I don't see. I have to look at TCU's schedule, but it looked like they kind of slayed the giant with the win. It looked
like it, but they're playing Baylor this week.
And didn't Kansas State just smack them in Waco?
Yeah, but again, they're playing Baylor this week. If we haven't learned anything by now, not just about this season, about every season, would anyone out there be surprised if TCU lost to Baylor? Baylor's 6-4.
Yes.
Baylor's played just about as well as everybody else up until this past weekend, that I would not be surprised whatsoever.
I think that'd be a massive upset if they lost to Baylor.
Depending on if the game's at Baylor, I bet it's less than a touchdown point spread.
You looking it up now?
Yeah, I don't.
I'd be surprised if it's single digits.
Do you know what the spread is on TCU and Baylor?
You're probably gonna say something like 4.
Pick 'em.
Oh, you got to be kidding me! It's a pick 'em.
I am telling you, there would be no big deal to Baylor beating TCU. This would not be a surprise to anyone who follows this.
Oh man,
telling you,
Vegas is going to go broke on that one.
The real MVPs. No, they won't. They know what they're doing, but it's not from a talent standpoint. And TCU coming off a big high of winning this last game.
Well, what does Baylor have now? I say, Max is playing as good as any quarterback in the nation. Pretty close. Their offensive line is good. They got great receivers. What does Baylor have?
They've got just as good as. I think if you throw out this last game that they just played, Baylor's had a couple of games break one way, and TCU's had a couple of games break one other way. Texas Tech, what are they right now? 4-6? Did they win last weekend? They were 4-5. Who did they play? Anyway, I think they lost to Kansas. Whoever they played. Anyway, Texas Tech, they had TCU down in the fourth quarter, and they got some bad calls against them. They could have won that game.
It's and it's part of Texas. Texas also lost to Texas Tech as well.
Sure, it
just seems like the Big 12 cannibalizes itself, except TCU kind of remains immune. I mean, I don't know if they're just got rabbits' feet and horseshoes and blown out birthday candles everywhere or something, or I don't know what it is, but they seem to be immune from that parody curse of the Big 12.
Okay, we shall see. They got to do it 3 more times, though.
And I can't see them tripping up. I thought that they passed their final test, but
yeah, I would be more inclined to think that they're going to trip up than they won't trip up. All right, Mike.
Okay, well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, people get surprised by these point spreads, but Vegas, they know what they're doing. That doesn't mean that they're always right. Of course, they're not always right, but typically when Vegas is wrong, everybody else is wrong too. It's not like, oh, well, Vegas really screwed that point spread up. We can all go make a ton of money. No, it's usually when they're wrong by 30 points, all of us were duped by 30. All right, Buckeye Mike's here to talk some football. What's going on, Buckeye Mike? Reese's, are they going to give us a slice of sponsorship tonight? Is that what they're doing? Are you my billboard?
I can be.
Well, I hope we're getting a Venmo transaction delivered right now as we speak. All right, Mike, what do you got?
I mean, it is the greatest chocolate bar or whatever it's considered of all time.
It's probably going to cause me to end this show early and go out and get some. That's what they do with these ridiculous Reese's commercials. They like just guilt you into thinking, I got to have this like now.
Yeah. Crazy. Hey, so did you you've been doing this a long time, so I'm sure maybe you have. Did you ever hear about the 2008 Ohio State applying to join the SEC?
In 2008, Ohio State applied to join the SEC. I have never heard that.
Yep. I read an article.
In the chat heard of that. I'm going to look it up right now.
I read something a couple weeks ago. It was like right after they lost to LSU, the one national championship that we should have.
That who should have?
Ohio State should have it.
They should have the 2007 national championship?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Based on what?
I felt like we played LSU better than we played Florida. Granted, the only reason realistically we lost to Florida was Ted Ginn. which wasn't his fault.
Oh, hang on. Buckeye Mike, come on, let's bring some sense to this show. Wait a minute. Did
I
you
give
just tell
LSU
me?
credit. They deserved it. They won outright. So, I mean, but I feel like.
Did you just tell me that Ohio State lost to Florida because Ted Ginn sprained his ankle and had to leave the game?
Not the only factor. No, the defense was
a huge factor. I've said it many times here. That was a huge factor. Even there's Ohio State insiders that say Jim Tressel really changed the game plan and approach to feature Ted Ginn in that game, and all of a sudden he's gone. Yeah, it was a huge factor in the game, but they got annihilated in that game. Okay,
and a lot of the credit is the Florida defense.
Oh, absolutely. Ohio State's tackles could not block Florida's defensive ends. So fast forward to 2007. What are you saying about 2007?
When we played LSU the following year,
yes.
All I was saying as far as that was the game to me seemed a lot closer.
Oh, it was a lot closer. Still wasn't close. It was closer.
I mean, it was what, 14 points to Florida was like 20 something.
It was 38-24 the next year. And, again, if you're an Ohio State apologist, you can make a number of excuses as to why they could have been closer in that game. But still, wait a minute. You want to give Ohio State a national, like I'm not understanding.
All I'm saying is, yes, LSU won it.
Yeah.
So they obviously deserved it. I just felt like we had a better chance in that game because I felt like we had control of the game most of the time. Now, granted, it was like over 8 years ago. So I would have to go back and rewatch the game to get a better view of what I think. But I feel like the game was closer longer than the Florida game was.
Well, sure it
Granted,
was. Yeah.
Still give credit to LSU because they did win. I mean, they deserved it. They beat us.
So everything that you said about it being a closer game is dead on, but it wasn't a close game.
Right. I mean, it's funny because, yes, it was closer. But if you look up the definition of blowout, it's 14 points or more is considered a blowout.
There's a definition for blowout?
Yes.
By the way, I cannot find anything online about Ohio State applying to the SEC. But anyway, so...
Yeah, it's some big story. So after that game, Tressel was like, we've played the SEC twice. We can't beat the SEC. So let's go join the SEC. And so the whole I'll have to find it and send it to you sometime.
I would love to see that.
But basically it was like Big Ten said no and rejected the whole thing because they were like, our only good teams are Ohio State and Michigan. We're not going to lose one of our well-named brands. So I just thought that was crazy.
I would love to know who defined how many points is a blowout in football, because I think you need to watch the game. You can't just say 14 points is a blowout. I've seen 20-point games that were close, and I've seen 6-point games that weren't really close. You have to watch the game.
Yeah.
I looked up blowout, and I came up with on Wikipedia, it occurs when one athletic team or individual performer outscores another by a large margin or in such a fashion that allows the second team or individual little chance of a victory. But I don't see any specific, 14 points is a blowout. To me, that's not a blowout in most 14-point games.
I've read that somewhere. So because Illinois was always the favorite to win the West, Purdue just beat Illinois.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that make Purdue the favorite?
Well, first of all, when was Illinois ever the favorite? They became the favorite because they took control of the division.
Right.
Really, in some ways, Iowa's the favorite right now. Iowa has the best chance of winning their last two games and they only would need Illinois. If Iowa wins its last 2 games against Minnesota and Nebraska, they only need Illinois to lose to Michigan to win the division. Purdue plays the 2 easiest games. They've got Indiana and Northwestern. But if they win those 2 and Iowa wins their 2, they tie for the division, and Iowa wins the tiebreaker since they beat Purdue. You don't want to see Iowa there.
Iowa was nice to see last year because even though I'm an Ohio State fan, it gets tiring to see the same teams every time. Like for the longest stretch, it was Ohio State, Wisconsin. Or it was, we've played Northwestern twice now.
Ohio State and Wisconsin. Yeah, they played 3 times in 6 years. Okay.
Well, I just mean, it sucked being an Ohio State fan to see Michigan go, but it was nice to see somebody new for once last year.
So you want to see Ohio State play Purdue or Illinois because they've never been there?
I mean, not necessarily, because when Big Ten gets rid of divisions, it's going to be annoying because it's going to always be it's going to always be somewhere between Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and Michigan State. Maybe USC.
1 or 2 teams that are on their way.
Yes, them too.
Yeah.
You really think Michigan is that much better than Ohio State, or is that just a flip-flop for you too?
Oh, it's a toss-up. No, I don't think I actually don't think they're better than Ohio State. I think they're playing better than Ohio State. And if Ohio State's 2 running backs were healthy, I'd feel much more confident.
That's true. So why TCU too?
Because they have the second best resume.
I can kind of see that.
They beat Texas, they beat Kansas State, they beat Kansas, they beat Oklahoma State, they beat Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they've beaten, outside of Kansas, they've beaten the normal blue bloods in the Big 12. So, I mean, it makes sense. I just felt like the resume doesn't, to me, TCU resume compares better in their favor to Michigan than does Ohio State. Granted, there might just be some bias.
So who should be number 2?
In my opinion, you're right at number 1. All respect to Georgia.
Okay.
And number 2, I think it should be number 2. I think it should be Ohio State.
Okay. Why does Ohio State have a better resume than TCU?
Notre Dame and Penn State.
Okay, Notre Dame and Penn State, we can put them up against Texas and Kansas State, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess, right now it's all like who kind of cares? Because it's really going to come down to which team wins the game.
It doesn't matter.
Because whoever wins the game, I think, will boost their resume.
The only thing that matters beyond who wins that game is that if you truly believe, and I think that there is a chance, it's a small one, but a chance for the loser to make the playoff, then everything we're talking about right now means a whole lot. It goes from meaning nothing to a whole lot.
Mm-hmm. And going back to what Michael said, a lot of people don't want to believe it, but as long as LSU wins the SEC championship, and we're about to get into a bunch of what ifs, so it's really hard to see the outcome. But the real, as crazy as he sounds sometimes, it's still possible to get 3 SEC teams in. because Georgia is number one. Georgia will stay number one, in my opinion, if they keep winning.
Yep.
They lose the SEC championship to LSU.
Yep.
In a close game, like the game, like you're saying, the game, like 31-28 type. LSU gets in because they're SEC champ. UGA gets in because they were number one when they lost. So they would drop like they did last year. TCU would have to lose. You need help from North Carolina to beat Clemson, or somebody else to beat Clemson.
Yeah.
USC, I agree with you. I don't see USC win it. They can win the Pac-12, but I don't see them winning enough to. I could see them finish 5, 6, maybe.
Yeah.
And then
USC has to beat 3 teams the next 3 weeks that are better than any team they've beaten the entire season. They have to beat 3 of them.
Yeah, the biggest thing is going to be TCU. Because TCU, in my opinion, will determine a factor of, are we going to get 2 SEC and 2 Big Ten, or are we going to get 3 SEC and 1 Big Ten? The only way I see 1 Big Ten is Ohio State has Michigan coming in to Columbus and says, hey, let's go behind this shed. That's the only way we get just 1 Big Ten team in. Why Tulane at 25 when they're ranked higher in the actual poll?
Well, first of all, I don't care who's ranked where in whatever poll. I don't look at the poll. I don't know who's ranked wherever in what poll.
Right.
Tulane in my previous rankings was like 17 or 18, and I dropped them to 25. And again, I don't drop teams. I don't like look at it that way. Like, okay, they're 20, they lost them and drop them to 25. I just reconstruct the entire rankings every week. And yeah, it was a close call. I noted that there were how many teams that are 6-4, 7-3, and 8-2? It's a ridiculous like run of teams to try to compare.
You said in all the FBS there's like 25 or 32 6-4 teams.
Yeah, which you wouldn't think a 6-4 team should be in the top 25, but if you look at them, there's some argument.
Like, in my opinion, Marshall's got to be somewhere based on their resume with the Notre Dame win.
Yeah.
Now the Appalachian State win. They got to be anywhere from like 26 to 35.
Well, Appalachian State was like 5-4.
That's true.
What is Marshall right now?
6-4.
Marshall's 6-4. No. We're not putting them anywhere close to a top 25. They
Makes
lost
sense.
Bowling Green, Troy, Louisiana by 10, Coastal Carolina. Okay. All right, Buckeye Mike. Appreciate you being here. We're going to take some other calls here. Call back anytime. Make sure Reese sends me some cash.
Will do.
See ya. All right, let's get Gazito. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Gazito, how you doing?
Yo, Mark.
What's going on?
Good, how are you, bro?
I'm good. What you got?
Hey, I saw you on the what was it, Steve Dace podcast a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I was just gonna say that's how I saw you.
Oh, cool.
Why is it Steve over here? You gotta invite him on this show.
We do. But Steve's a busy guy, and I've had him on 20 times probably.
Oh,
yeah, we just don't record a regular segment over here. I record with Steve every Tuesday, and so I'm recording with him tomorrow afternoon over there.
Oh, so how often does he come here?
Just whenever I ask him, and he can make it.
Oh, dang.
We
Okay.
got no set time.
That's fair. So I had a scenario like,
yeah,
basically for the college football playoffs. So if USC was to win out and go 12-1, and say Michigan wins out, and they beat Ohio close, and say Clemson, TCU win out, Tennessee wins out. You think USC, like for that 4th spot, do you think USC would get in over Ohio State and Tennessee?
I think that the look of the USC Notre Dame game would come into play against what Ohio State did against Notre Dame in making that comparison. I think that no team that just has one loss, especially if it's Ohio State or it's anybody else, not Tennessee, has such a amazing resume and such an incredible non-conference win that they're going to get the nod over a conference champion that only has one loss. And especially if USC in this scenario is coming off wins against UCLA, Oregon, and let's say Utah. And even in that scenario, USC's got another feather in their cap because they will have defeated the team that beat them. They get a rematch against Utah, and they will have won the game.
Right. So you think USC would be good to jump Ohio State and Tennessee, even though they're below them right now?
I would think that they would jump Ohio State for sure if Ohio State loses to Michigan. Tennessee's will have a better resume than Ohio State with wins over Alabama and LSU, Florida, Kentucky, etc.
So it would be more of a debate between USC and Tennessee then?
We're all taking educated guesses on what the committee's going to decide. So
Right.
this isn't like trying to figure out a football game. This is trying to figure out what other people are going to decide and vote on.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a guessing game each year with the committee. I mean, I know the committee has like new members each year as well, so
yeah,
you can never really truly know.
The only thing I can guarantee is that in that room, they don't agree, which is a good thing. And the only other thing I know is that their opinions run the gamut from the metrics, nerds, data people that just say, the numbers say these are the 4 best teams in the country, to all the way at the other end of the spectrum where there are former football coaches and ADs in that room that say, hey, I've watched all these teams play over and over and over, and I don't care what the metrics say. These are the 4 best teams.
Yeah, definitely.
But in terms of how they're going to compare a USC with 1 loss against Ohio State, so in that scenario, Ohio State's going to have a better loss, but USC is going to have avenged its loss. So they've proven that even though they lost to Utah by 1 point on a 2-point conversion on the road, that they were able to avenge that loss and beat Utah. And we'd have to run down the wins in terms of who has more impressive wins. For Ohio State, it's going to be Penn State, Notre Dame. I guess Iowa could be in the Big Ten championship game. Those would be the 3 best wins. And for USC, it's going to be Utah, UCLA, Notre Dame. So it's close.
Yeah, for sure. Also, talking about Iowa, you mentioned them. How about that turnaround? They were looking dead in the water for so long, especially after Michigan and Ohio State games.
Yeah.
And that offense was abysmal, and now they're actually clicking, at least kind of.
Well, their defense is always clicking, and their offense is never clicking. But, even when they looked okay on offense against Northwestern and Purdue, that was more about those 2 teams' defense. Yeah, really, Iowa's not playing that much better or worse than they always play. It's more about Illinois' blown 2 games the last 2 weekends against teams that they were pretty heavy favorites against. If Illinois would have won the last 2 weekends, this division would be over, and we wouldn't be talking about Iowa.
Yeah, that's true. I still can't believe Illinois honestly lost that Michigan State game. Because they were playing well most of that game, but just a few dumb mistakes. And honestly, I can't believe Michigan State, after that Michigan game and that Michigan debacle in the tunnel, I thought their season would kind of collapse, but
Yeah.
they've been able to win a couple in a row.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got to credit Mel Tucker for rallying the troops after that tunnel business.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Kazito, anything else you got for us?
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about basically TCU. So I know you said on a couple past shows that TCU didn't have a great chance of winning out, 8% chance or something you would say. But now obviously everyone was picking against TCU in the Texas game, but they kind of controlled that game. So how you liking TCU this year? Do you think they're actually one of the 4 best? I mean, I know if they win out, they probably have earned a spot, but are they really up there among Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia?
Well, after watching them against Texas, I am more inclined to think that they're up there. I didn't give them enough credit. I gave them credit in my rankings. They're number 2. But in terms of my own evaluation of how good they are, I had not given them as much credit. Now, after seeing what I saw against Texas on the road, yeah, I think they are closer to those teams than I thought. I don't think they're one of the 4 best teams in the country, but I think they're in that range.
So would you say Alabama's a better team than Texas right now? Or not Texas, TCU, I mean?
Yeah. If Alabama was going to play TCU this weekend, I'd take Alabama. Absolutely.
Interesting. So would you say LSU is also better than TCU and Tennessee as well?
Yes.
Interesting. I can see that.
But I think they're close. I think they can play with those teams. But I think Ohio State, Michigan, Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama and LSU are all better than TCU. And I think Clemson, USC, Oregon, those teams are in the same range.
That's fair. Okay, one last thing I wanted to talk about was kind of the Heisman race. I know a lot of people are focusing on Stroud and Corum and whatnot, but the season Max Duggan is having down at TCU and Caleb Williams is going crazy out west, but I feel not a lot of people are talking about him. I don't know if it's just because nobody can watch the USC games because they're at 1 a.m., but he's going crazy, and Drake May as well, but nobody's really talking about North Carolina, so I feel he's kind of getting slept on. So I don't know. I feel the Heisman race is probably going to come down to Corum and Stroud in the game, but I feel Williams and Duggan and May, I think, deserve a lot more attention.
Yeah, Duggan's got 25 TDs against 2 picks right now. I think everybody that you just mentioned should be given serious consideration for the Heisman, because the thing is that Bryce Young won a Heisman last year. CJ Stroud may be on his way this year. He was the favorite coming into it. But those 2 teams would not be anywhere close to what they are without them, but they would still be top-level teams. Caleb Williams at USC, Max Duggan, TCU, Drake May, North Carolina, they largely carry those teams.
Oh, exactly. That's why I think, especially with Williams, if he can drag USC to the playoffs, I mean, that defense is absolutely abysmal in LA, So if he can drag them to the playoffs, wins over UCLA, Notre Dame, maybe Oregon or Utah or whatever in the championship game, I think that actually deserves some serious attention.
I do too. Yeah, I do too. Right now, I was a Hendon Hooker guy for most of the season up until the Georgia game. And then I thought, okay, well, now it's more of a race in my mind. But, I think that all the people that you just mentioned, plus Corum and Hooker, are really difficult to separate right now.
Yeah, I agree. So would you...
I really see the last few games of the season and the conference championship games as being games that the voters are going to have to look at to say who is making a difference in these games, who is winning these games.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was last year too. Hutchinson wasn't really getting any love, and then he went off against Ohio State.
Yep.
even Bryce Young was like, it was like, and then he kind of cooked Georgia in the title game. So
yeah,
I kind of want it for him. So would you think basically, do you have an order right now basically for your Heisman, or are you just kind
do
of,
I have an order?
yeah, like a top 5 for your Heisman?
I've not thought about it off the top of my head right this second. Right this second, I would go, and maybe I'm thinking of this more as a most valuable player, but I would go Hendon Hooker, Max Duggan, Drake May, Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud, Blake Corum. That'd be my order.
Okay.
Without really looking into it.
Yeah, I think that works. That's pretty good.
All right, man.
All right.
Anything else?
Well, no, not really. Just want a quick shout out to UConn for making a bowl.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The mighty Huskies with Jim Mora. Well, we appreciate you being here, and call back anytime. And we are glad that you found us. And we do live stream call-in shows all over the place all the time.
All right, cool. See you.
All right. Before we get to Sean Garner on the phone lines, we'll get to Sean Garner's super chat. Enjoying these discussions. Best college football community online. How about that? We got the endorsement from Sean Garner. Go Bucks. Go Bearcats. And we'll have to ask Sean what happens if the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Cincinnati Bearcats play like they did in 2006, 2002, 1999, and maybe a few other times in there. Oh, they just played in 2019, 42 zip. Hey, Sean, welcome in. What's going on?
Hey, Mark. They also had a battle in 2014.
Oh, yeah. You know what's funny about that?
Yeah, what's funny?
I was at that game. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, lots of
that game.
Lots of scoring in that one.
50-28, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
That was also a game in which there was some knucklehead that ran onto the field, and an Ohio State trainer or assistant like tackled him.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't
actually no. It was one of their former linebackers. It was Ross Holman, I think.
Oh no, Holman was probably gone by that point.
No, he wasn't on the team. He was on the coaching staff.
Oh, he was on the staff. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I'll have to look that up.
That's interesting. Interesting point. Thought you bring up. I remember in 2002 when they played. I didn't really necessarily think Ohio State had any like national title hopes, so I was pulling for the Bearcats in that game. That game was at Paul Brown. My dad tried to get tickets for it.
Yeah, I remember it well.
Yeah, and that Cincinnati dropped a go-ahead pass in the end zone.
Yes,
would have likely won them the game.
Yeah,
and I remember thinking like Ohio State doesn't quite have a national championship type of team at that point.
Yeah,
obviously wrong about that so I'm happy in hindsight that they were able to pull that out, but. Normally I'm pulling for the Buckeyes just because it's a lot more important for the Buckeyes to win those games than it is for Cincinnati. But that
was actually Anthony Schlegel who made that play on
that tackle on the scoundrel coming in the field. Oh no, so interesting one. So Mark, I don't know what's it going to take for you to accept TCU? Are you riding this TCU denial train like right into the ravine here, or is this?
Well, let's.
I'm joking.
That if they go undefeated, sure, they're in the playoff. They should be. I've even said, unlike a lot of people, that even if they lose a game and win the Big 12 championship, that they should go to the playoff.
Yeah.
What am I saying that's different than the one thing that I am saying is I don't think that they're quite as good as about 5 other teams. I don't think that they would be completely outclassed and blown out. I just don't think they're as good as Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, Michigan, that level of team. I don't think they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And that seems to be sort of the clear top 4 right now. Just if you would ask people to like to order the best teams in college football, those would be the top 4. According to most people, like those, that's how they would situate it. Is there much of a chance we could get all 4 of those teams into the playoffs? It seems odd that the Big Ten this year of all years could possibly get 2 teams in, but
yeah, because the league's been so bad.
Yeah.
Or it, I don't want to contradict myself because anytime anybody has said that to me, I've kind of called them on that. The league has not had enough non-conference games to really show one way or the other, but they've messed up some non-conference games anyway. And there's not been a number of teams, although look at Penn State. They lost to the 2 heavyweights and then they won the rest of their games. So I think Penn State's better than a lot of people think. But you're looking for a Georgia, Tennessee, Ohio State, Michigan Final Four?
I'm like, I have a hard time seeing Tennessee getting left out, like almost any scenario. I mean, they've got South Carolina and Vandy left to beat, right? I mean, obviously, if they lose either,
they're not losing.
There's nothing. No. So, I mean, if your only losses to the top team in the country and you have several quality wins, especially in kind of a weak field like this year, it's hard to see them getting left on the doorstep in any way. The only way I could see that is if LSU beats Georgia in the SEC title game, which I think is a more realistic possibility than most people think it is.
Yeah, I think it is too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's probable, but I would not be overly shocked if LSU won that game. They have the talent to win the game.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, but like a one loss TCU non-championship, they lose to who's the Kansas State? Are they basically the number 2 team? Let's just say they play Kansas State, right?
Yeah.
They lose to Kansas State in the Big 12 title game. They'll have beaten the one team that they lost to. Everything, like, do they have any sort of hope under that scenario? Still crawling in.
If they lose the Big 12 championship game,
yeah,
I don't think they're going to make it under those circumstances unless a lot of teams lose elsewhere. That championship loss is going to kill them.
This is something I've always had a problem with in college football is that recency bias.
Yes.
And I remember I was not real old at the time, but I do remember Ohio State's 98 team. Most people consider that team to be the best team in the country. They stubbed their toe against MSU either the second or third to last weekend in the season, dominated the rest of their schedule. And there were a whole bunch of one-loss. There was like a big cluster of one-loss teams. And Florida State basically got in because they lost their game in October or September.
Yeah.
And everything.
Yeah. That was the first indication that the BCS was screwed up.
Yeah. But any system, like, I mean, that was largely a product of the polling system, basically. Yeah. The polls.
2/3.
Yeah. The polls put Florida State really effectively in that game. It wasn't necessarily the more objective criteria that put them in there. But no, so what I'm basically getting at is, I mean, I guess the difference is like conference championships, however much weight you want to apply to that. But if TCU would be in a better position if they lost to Kansas State first and then beat them again later, right? But what's the real difference there?
Well, that depends if you're a championship guy or you're a resume guy. If you're a resume guy, there's no difference. But if you are into conference championships and believe that they are meaningful, then it means more.
Yeah.
They're playing for the championship of the conference.
Yeah, absolutely. But in other circumstances, if I don't know, if a loss now just hurts you, especially with the committee right now. I think losses in November are just so much worse than losses earlier in the season. I'm not exactly sure.
That's another argument to be made. Do you take the entire season as one big resume and you equally weight the entire season? Obviously, the record is equally weighted. If you win a game, you win a game. If you lose a game, you lose a game, regardless of whether that's in August or November. Or are you wanting to take the 4 best teams right now?
I mean, that's a whole another debate you can have. I mean, obviously the committee can they could deem Alabama to be one of the 4 best teams. It doesn't mean there's any realistic reason they should put them in. I mean, Alabama very well could be one of the 4 best teams.
Sure.
They probably are, to be honest. I mean, I think they're probably overall a slightly better team than Tennessee. But
they lost to Tennessee on the last play of the game, in a game in which they missed the field goal that would have most likely won the game, and they played in a crazy hostile environment with Tennessee playing at a fever pitch. But to be fair about it, Bama did get a gift touchdown with 5, 6, 7 minutes left in the game on a missed exchange of a mesh point by Hendon Hooker and the running back. So that was a gift of a touchdown. And Tennessee, to its credit, recovered from that, down by a touchdown. But I'll give you 2019 or 2018. Sorry, 2018, when. No, I'm sorry, 2019. 2019 is the season Alabama missed the playoff. When people ask me, did the committee get it right? Did they get the 4 right teams? And I said, well, those are the 4 teams that earned it. It was the 3 undefeated teams, LSU, Ohio State, Clemson. Then it was Oklahoma, because they were the only 1-loss conference champion. So I said, they got it right because it was clear cut. It was easy. That was the easiest selection they've ever had. Those are the 4. Are they the 4 best teams in the country? No. I'll take Alabama all day over Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And Alabama, they lost because they lost to Tagovailoa. They lost to a great LSU team by 5 points. And they lost when Mac Jones threw 2 pick-sixes against Auburn, and they had 2 losses. And they finished 11-2. But I'm convinced they were one of the 4 best teams in the country, and certainly better than Oklahoma. Alabama would not have been down by 5 touchdowns at halftime against LSU.
No, they certainly wouldn't have been.
So there's a difference. There's a difference between who earned it and who's the best.
I was having this little thought experiment actually while I was kind of waiting. I'm like, this game this weekend right now, no one ever does this in college football, and it's probably I'm probably grateful that no one that has thought to do this. But these games this weekend for Ohio State and Michigan are effectively meaningless. I don't see any way, like any result they have. If either one were to lose, they still play each other for the Big Ten East title, and they still have to win the Big Ten title to get into the playoff. Really, nothing changes for either team, win or lose this weekend. Is there any thought to just almost treating this like a preseason game for both of them, or almost treating this like a Week 17 kind of game in the NFL when you've already got your playoff spot locked up? Is there could Ohio State? We don't have Mayan Williams and Travion are both banged up. We're not going to play them at all. Stroud gets 2 series, and we're going to pull him out. Harrison and Abuka, we're not playing, you get where I'm going. In Michigan, the same thing. Corum just sit in street clothes this weekend. I mean, is there any thought to doing something like this? I mean,
well, as long as you understand as a head coach that if your team loses the next week, that you've ruined your playoff chance. That if you believe that your team can lose the Ohio State-Michigan game and still get a playoff spot, then you've killed that option.
oh, so I am kind of contradicted because I did ask about that chance for possibly having two Big Ten teams in. So, yeah, I guess that undercuts that point. But point, just assuming right now that like you have to win the Big Ten to get in. Is there any point in taking these games seriously for either of these teams? I don't know.
Again, the coach has to have a gauge on his team, and different coaches approach those sorts of NFL scenarios like he played out different than others. And if Ryan Day and Jim Harbaugh can look at their team and think, if I make certain moves and pull certain guys out of the game at certain points or don't let them play, I'm increasing my odds of winning the next game substantially, not by 1%, but by 15% or something that could be substantial, then, and I could still, most likely, I'm still going to win this game. I think Ohio State and Michigan can play a lot of backups and beat either one of these teams, even though Illinois and Maryland are not bad teams. Maryland showed us last week that they're still a good ways away from being an upper echelon Big Ten team. All this Maryland talk for much of the season by some people, they're not that good. They're the 50th best team in the country. So Ohio State should still be able to win that game as long as it's not a crazy situation.
But I mean, like the real almost,
I don't think they're going to approach that. I've never seen that done in that situation. But
no, I mean, but Georgia might almost be a better example. They have they've got Georgia Tech, and I don't even know who they play this weekend. It's
I'll think about it.
Mercer or somebody probably.
Oh, that's right. They've got one of those games.
Yeah. It's
oh, they got UAB. No, LSU plays UAB. Yeah, they've got one of those games. I'll find it.
I mean, their spot's already locked into the SEC championship game. I mean, the worst thing
no. They've got Kentucky on the road.
Well, they do. Never mind. Okay, I thought this was one. So slightly more challenging though after last week. I don't know how much more.
It's substantially more. Let's not go overboard based on one result.
Yes, exactly. But no, I mean but I'm saying you never see that in college football ever. I've never seen like even when Georgia plays Georgia Tech, their starters will be in the game well into the third quarter, even if they're up like 49-0 probably. And at what point I don't even understand. I do kind of not understand the point in really putting your players out there at risk. Stroud, if Stroud, gets hurt, suffers a concussion or something, and does something in a meaningless part of a relatively meaningless game, and Kyle McCord has to go out there. That seems like that would make people rethink a lot of how they approach some of these games and some of these situations.
Sure.
So.
All right, Sean.
Right. Take care, Mark.
Appreciate you being here. Thanks for the super chat.
No problem. Anytime.
Oh, he said go something. I don't know what he was going to say after that. All right. Welcome into the Voice of College Football, everyone. Appreciate you being here. We will have the link there in the live chat if you want to join us. We got Huffer Billy Paw joining the show. Look at this.
Hey, it's good to talk to you.
Yes.
Awesome.
Good to have you here.
Yeah. So I just listening to the discussion, what occurred? Well, it occurred to me the other week, 2 weeks ago, but it really has hit home now. We needed an expanded playoff because here we are, we got 4 spots and we have probably 6 decent suitors for those spots.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems unfair to me, at least, to tell Tennessee to go pound sand because we're going to potentially have a TCU if they win out. Now we'll see. I mean, everything has its day, or a Clemson and UNC with one loss win their conference championship. USC wins theirs. OSU, Michigan, one of those is going to win that, and Georgia's in. So somebody's sitting on the outside looking in, and I'm not advocating for Clemson, so don't think I'm in here to say that Clemson deserves to be in the playoffs, because I personally don't think so, but for a lot of reasons. But that being said, it's one of those things you said, is it the ones that earned it versus the best teams. And the best team is subjective, so you should go with who earns it. And that's why you need more than 4 spots. That's really my point in all this. And it's sad. I mean, golly, LSU's really come on strong. I mean, look at what they've done. They've turned it around. So we're leaving OSU out. If they lose to Michigan, leaving Michigan out. If they lose to OSU, I mean, it's it just seems like it's not complete. That's all.
So are you good with the 12-team playoff?
I wanted 8.
Yeah.
I thought 12 was a little much, because I don't like bye weeks, and I think there's a lot more games to play with 12.
Yeah.
And I don't like the bye week because it's almost an unfair. I mean, well, it is an unfair advantage.
Yeah, it is.
So I like the 8 because you can say everybody's going to play in an 8 one and not make it so burdensome on the number of games and wear and tear. So that's why I was on the 8 side. And, expanded is better than not expanded is the bottom line. Even if it's 12, we'll deal with it. I'll take it,
Yeah, I understand your thoughts there. And unless things really get cleaned up, there's going to be some controversy. I can't see a scenario where there's not some controversy. I would love to see a lot of controversy and chaos because, like you just very succinctly put, most likely there are going to be teams that win championships that can be argued earned their spot versus like a Tennessee that has a better resume.
Yep. And it's conference alignment. Yeah, it was the conference divisions that got them over a barrel, right? It almost like I can't believe I'm going to say this. The big, not the big, the Big 12, in the way they do it. The 2 best teams play for the conference championship at the end of the year. That's probably what would be nice for the SEC to be doing right now, right?
Yeah, we'd have a rematch between Georgia and Tennessee. Yep. But then again, if they were all in the same conference and no divisions, we don't know what the schedule would look like. It would be different.
Yeah.
Things would be different, but that's what we would have. Yeah. And we'd have Ohio State and Michigan play, I guess, back-to-back weeks. So that's another situation that may
another conundrum.
Yeah, it is another conundrum because either you put them in the same division if you have divisions going forward once USC and UCLA enter, or you split them up and then you either sacrifice the tradition of having the game on the final weekend.
Exactly.
Or you leave it there and then you're faced with this possibility that I think as a novelty, one time would be kind of interesting. They have to turn around and play again the next week. But if we're 10 years down the road and Ohio State and Michigan have played 4 or 5 times in the Big Ten championship game the week after that they played them, that
gets old.
Anybody wants to see that.
Yeah, that gets old. But it's just I'm looking at it and I keep saying, hey, I can't believe Oregon lost, to be honest. I was really looking forward to them making a play to be a 1-loss team to Georgia, win the pack with a 1 loss. And that, to me, says rematch time for that. Yeah. But, oh, well, we didn't get it. So,
for Billy, you are the complete opposite of our guy Tim, who's been in here, our USC guy Tim, because he hates rematches. He figures you played once, why play again?
I agree with him if it's close together, like, within weeks, 2 weeks of each other, right? the thing that Oregon did is they had to get punched in the face with a brand new coach first week, and they got their legs under them, and they got better every week from here on. And now we're getting to the end of the year, and you can see the improvement. You can see where they've gone. And so my whole thing is it's not really the same team anymore after this, right? So that's all. They've earned it. You to go back to earning it. If you do all that, you've earned it. And that's my biggest thing is teams should have an opportunity to put up or shut up on the field. That's why we need expanded playoffs. I don't like all these subjective polls and everybody, well, somebody's better than, whatever. Let's put it on the field. That said, I don't want Clemson anywhere near the playoffs this year. So,
No, you don't want to give it a shot? You never know.
look, I mean, we don't have nearly the prolific offense and the stability or consistency to be in the league with a Georgia. I'm just saying, or even a Tennessee. They would punk us. We would look. It'd be worse than that West Virginia loss in the Orange Bowl that year. And I don't.
Well, yeah, especially since your defense isn't as dominant as I thought it was going to be. It's good. It's really good,
but it's not where it needs to be.
Yeah.
So I'm a realist fan. I'm not one of these. Clemson should always be in the playoffs kind of guy. I actually didn't want us to be in playoffs another year when we got in when Ohio State beat us. Yeah, because I knew we were skating on thin ice that year. We weren't playing well. But, I don't get to call all this. I just get to watch, which is fun.
Well, I just get to talk about it and watch. And, I don't get a call myself. There's only 13 people that get the call. So
eventually you will, though. Just hang tight. It won't be long.
All right.
All right.
I'll hang on to that.
Yep. I'll let you go. I just want
Thanks, Upper Billy.
Yes, sir. Talk to
Always
you later.
good to see your comments and see you show up on the channel. So I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. We'll talk
Good
soon.
night.
Bye-bye.
Huffer Billy calling in. Good to hear from him. Clemson fan who says, all right, we'll go to the Orange Bowl. We're good with that. All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. The real MVP.
Hey, Mark, how you doing this evening?
I am doing just fine. What is going on with you?
I have a problem, Mark.
All right.
Georgia.
Yes.
How do we beat them?
Oh, you're a Kentucky problem.
Yeah, it's a big problem, Mark.
Okay. I thought we were
a giant problem.
headed toward more playoff talk, and you're talking about, okay, Georgia. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I thought this was going to be one of Georgia's more difficult challenges this year, but and I do think Kentucky's going to bounce back. I'm not one of these that overreacts to, and this is an easy one to overreact to, losing to Vandy.
Tricky team, Mark. Tricky team. Vanderbilt, man, they got some fight in them.
And that's not the team you want to play, meaning Georgia, when you've got your offensive line. Like they were throwing Tennessee offensive linemen into Hendon Hooker, like throwing him in his lap.
So you're telling me Georgia's really good at rushing the passer?
Yeah, I think they're pretty good at a lot of things.
Oh, okay.
And
do they have a good quarterback though?
Yeah, he's pretty good. He gets the job done.
I've heard him compared on this channel to a garden gnome. Is that true or false?
That yes, it was offered up that he should be, some type of a Christmas ornament gnome that we could sell on here. Yeah, he's a little better than that.
Okay.
It is an amusing comparison, but you might have the better quarterback, but then again, you might not. It's a close call. But other than that, I don't know where Kentucky has any kind of an advantage. Home field advantage. Maybe
it's going to be a 3:30 game on CBS.
I saw that. I was surprised by that. I thought, does CBS really want to be talking through a 49-10 game at like 5:30 in the afternoon?
Well, maybe they'll preview Kentucky's basketball schedule for this upcoming week. So that could be something fun.
What do we think the spread is on this game? I'm going to go 24.
I think you're close.
And so you saw that the other game that we were looking up, you saw that TCU was a 3-point favorite against.
Yeah, I saw anywhere from 3 to pick 'em.
Okay. Yeah, I saw Pick'em. I didn't think it was going to be that close. All right. We've got Georgia is a 22.5-point favorite. Yeah, 22.5. Total points, 49.5, whatever that is. 35 to 36 to 12 or something like that. 36 to 13. Yeah.
I'd be
30,
happy if
13.
Kentucky scores 13 points. I mean, that'd be twice as much as they did against Tennessee.
I know you may not want to think this way, but if somebody said, the game's going to be 36-13, you may just want to take that. Doesn't sound that bad.
I'm just hoping for no injuries at this point, Mark.
Yeah.
I'm hoping Will Levis doesn't opt out these final few games of the season. Because
who is your backup quarterback? I know as soon as I hear the name, I'm going to remember.
I have no idea.
Okay,
he's some guy I don't think he's ever played before. His first start was against South Carolina.
Oh, I saw some of that game. Forget his name. But anyway, because he may be playing the bowl game, right?
Maybe. Kentucky doesn't have a history of people opting out. I mean, Wandale Robinson played in his bowl game. Benny Snell played in his.
Good.
So true. Kentucky's had a good history, a good culture of not having players opt out. And I'm hoping that continues.
Sharon. All right.
I'm not sure how much you saw against him in South Carolina, but if he's in the game, Kentucky might have 6 picks. Like, I'm not joking.
Well, I'm just asking because now that you laid out the possibility of playing at Pac-12 team in the Las Vegas Bowl, I want to see you guys at full strength. I'm going to be so keyed up and intrigued by a meeting of the minds, you versus our Pac-12 folks, if Kentucky plays a Pac-12 team.
Yeah, I think 7-5 or maybe even 6. I think 7-5 is more likely to get to the Las Vegas Bowl.
Yeah, I'm rooting for that.
I am too.
Kentucky, Oregon State, maybe.
Oh, that would be fun. I know the Beaver man that's on here all the time.
Yeah.
He wants that so bad. And, it'd be nice I wonder what the excuse would be if Kentucky beat Oregon State. Mark, let me ask you this. If Utah wins the Pac-12 championship, can we declare Florida as the de facto Pac-12 winners?
Well, we do have folks on here, and they don't mind me calling them out because it's all in good fun. We got like our buddy Tony Altimore, who likes to declare Stanford as the ACC champion, because I would say Notre Dame is the ACC champion because, of course, they beat 3 ACC teams. Is it just 3? I think they're working on 4 this weekend with Boston College. But, of course, Stanford beat Notre Dame. So I would then go with Ohio State as actually being the ACC champion as well. But anyway, or Marshall. So Florida would own the. Now, the ultimate call that is actually even justified would be BYU last year being the Pac-12 champion. They went 5-0 against the Pac-12. 5-0.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm pretty sure they beat Utah in that 5-0 stretch as well.
Yeah, that is practically winning the conference. And yes, and they beat the champion. Yeah, that is the ultimate that I've ever come across.
Oh yeah, that's great, Mark. And there was something I caught on earlier. Nobody else saw it. I heard it, I guess, or nobody. But I just wanted to amplify it. LSU better than TCU?
Yes.
Georgia?
Yes.
Better than TCU?
LSU fairly close though, but yes, Georgia's better.
Tennessee?
Yes.
Alabama?
Yes.
Ole Miss?
I think we're looking at. I give TCU a lot more credit than you do. I'm much more in the camp that these would be fairly interesting games. Ole Miss and TCU, I'm going to go with a pretty much of a toss-up.
I'm surprised there isn't a wall of chat just saying SEC bias, Mark. I'll be honest with you. Because you can't have any SEC team being better than the Big 12, Pac-12, ACC champion without SEC bias. It can't be any other explanation than just SEC bias. And I see that comment on the screen. Wan'Dale Robinson got drafted by the Giants. I'm not saying Wan'Dale Robinson's responsible for the Giants' success, but if you look at the Giants last year before they had Wan'Dale Robinson and what they're doing this year, there might be a correlation there, Mark. There might be.
I am looking up right now. Okay, it's one of these endless lists. Let's see here, though. I think I'm going to keep going. Kentucky is actually 27th in most NFL players currently with 19.
That's interesting. How many? What teams are they around roughly?
Oh, I just kind of breezed by this. Here we go. Here's the list. Most NFL players by college week 1, 2022 season. Alabama, number 1. LSU, 2. Ohio State, 3. Georgia, 4. Oklahoma, 5. I'm a little surprised by that. Notre Dame, 6. Michigan, 7. Penn State, 8. Florida, 9. Tied with Iowa. Clemson, 11. Wisconsin, 12. Tied with Washington. Texas, 14. UCLA, 15. They've really underachieved, haven't they? Auburn, 16. Texas A&M, 17. Tied with South Carolina. Stanford, 19. USC, 20. Boy, they've fallen off. Tennessee, 21. Tied with Virginia Tech. Ole Miss at 23. Tied with Miami. Tied with Florida State, all at 23. Oregon, 26. And then we've got a tie for 27th between Cal, TCU, interestingly enough, and Kentucky and Missouri, and Oklahoma State.
There's a lot of surprises in that list. I'll be honest with you, Mark.
There's some underachieving schools, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know. Miami, probably the biggest one on that list.
Cal produces NFL players, and they suck at football. They're horrible.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting Cal to be mentioned.
Yeah, if you look at their list, they produce like really good. I think they don't produce, they just, their offensive and defensive lines are just so horrible. They never produce anyone along the lines. I think that's part of their problem. Stanford's pretty high. They're at 19.
They haven't been exactly great recently either.
Yeah, they've been bad it's been a while now that they've been bad.
When was Jim Harbaugh's last season? 2012?
No. Let's see. His first season in Michigan was 15. So he was with the Niners like 11, 12, and 13 and 14. I think 2011, 10 or 11 with Stanford.
Yeah, and they've been steady or falling down ever since then, right?
Oh, yeah. Like David Shaw is considered a great coach, but, really, I know he looks the part, he talks the part, he's an extremely intelligent man, but has he took over? Can you take over a better situation? Not unless you're like Lincoln Riley from Bob Stoops or you're Ryan Day from Urban Meyer, but at Stanford, is there such a better than handing him a team that's gone to like back-to-back BCS games and top 5 team in the nation, and he like maintained that for about 3 years, and then it started to become like 8-4, and he maintained that for a few years, and now the last 4 years, awful.
Yeah, that says a lot, Mark. The Pac-12 people tell me that UCLA wins games when you want them to lose, and they lose games when you want them to win.
Okay.
So with that going in mind, UCLA over USC this week.
Yeah, that would pretty much wreck the Pac-12. That would be the end of the Pac-12.
Yeah, I there's just something about the bounce back spot for UCLA, and USC's been kind of getting by.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't been dominant against these bad teams.
No.
These 4-8, 3-9 type teams.
Except Colorado, which no one
come on, Mark.
Yeah, no one cannot be successful. It's impossible to not beat them by 40 points. Yeah. Yeah, against Cal, Arizona, Arizona State, those kind of teams that there should be no business messing around with. If you're going to play in a college football playoff or be a conference champion and mess around with, one time per season, I think everyone's allowed one time messing around with Northwestern or messing around with somebody like that. But yeah, USC has looked pretty shaky for quite a while now.
Yeah, in an early upset game for next week that I haven't heard anybody mention, Mark, okay? Yep. Not a person. Auburn over Alabama.
Ooh.
Auburn over Alabama, man. They've been playing a lot of close games.
Yeah.
I think they played to their level of competition, like Notre Dame. And okay. I like what Cadillac Williams is doing there.
Yeah.
I think that's his name, Cadillac Williams.
Yes, it sure is.
I think he should, if he beats Alabama, he should absolutely be the head coach. And I think regardless, he should be at least considered for the head coaching job. He has done something at Auburn. I'm not sure how much of the Texas A&M game you saw, Mark.
None. Zero.
Well, their fans and the atmosphere, you could tell. They cared more about this game against Texas A&M than any game all season.
Well, he's an all-time favorite there. He's an all-time great player there. So,
well, hey, they need a spark, Mark. They need something. It feels like Auburn's lost its mojo a bit. And maybe you just get him in for a few years to bring a spark before you hire the next guy. Just give him a short contract. But I really like what I'm seeing out of Cadillac Williams. And he did a decent job coaching against Jimbo Fisher, which I understand Texas A&M has the worst record in the SEC, which is kind of funny, Mark. Worst record in the SEC, Texas A&M.
The only thing I could ask for now is that A&M was playing Vandy next week. That's the game I want to see, but we don't get to see that.
That would be a great game. I think Vandy would win. I really do think Vandy would win. If Texas A&M wasn't playing UMass, if they were playing UAB or some other, a semi-decent group of 5 team, an 8-4, 7-5 type of group and 5 team. I mean, they already lost to App State.
Yeah.
Who couldn't say they couldn't lose to a UAB?
Wow. They've lost 6 games in a row. Wow. What an utter disaster. The buyout intrigues me because the buyout's like $85 million. Okay. That's a crazy, ridiculous amount of money that I don't believe any of us can fathom. And if we can, if there's anybody out there that can, please send me a bunch of super chats. Anyway, none of us can fathom that kind of money. But if you think about it, if Texas pockets are as deep as we think they are, Auburn is still paying off Gus Malzahn like $21 million, something like that. And now Harsin, whatever his buyout was, $10 million, whatever it is, Auburn's into like 30 plus million between these coaches. And I got to think that Texas wouldn't have to pay him exactly that much money. They could like write a check for like 50 million and say, there you go, take it or leave it. I think you can usually come to some kind of negotiation. If you pay it up front, there it is. We'll let you take another job because the buyout is usually, we'll let you take another job. Here's the money. Go. I don't know if they're not going to make that move.
Yeah, it kind of feels like a Dan Mullen type thing where at the beginning of the season, he was unfathomable he would get fired.
Yeah.
And then as the more and more games play out, the more of an reality it becomes the likelihood of him getting fired. But $85 million, Mark, it's a lot of money. And isn't West Virginia struggling to try to pay like a $19-20 million buyout?
For Neil Brown?
Yeah.
That's West Virginia.
Yeah, I understand it's West Virginia and all, but that's only a fourth. And they're talking about the struggle of the buyout. I'm not sure if you saw as well, but they fired their athletic director.
Yes.
What'd you think about that?
Well, I think that means that Neil Brown's going. I don't know if that's the athletic director. Well, it is the athletic director that hired Neil Brown. So a new athletic director wants a new head coach, a coach that he selects. That's what that tells me. If Arkansas did not clank a field goal off the goalpost, Jimbo would be 2-8.
Yeah, that's bad, Mark.
Wow, they're awful. They are
Yeah.
just terrible. They lost to Auburn.
Yeah.
We've all been talking about how bad they are. But they
And
were
it
good
wasn't
enough to
really
beat
a
them.
competitive type of game. I know it was 13-10, but Auburn looked like the better football team through the parts I saw of the game.
Ooh, yeah, they ran for 270 yards. Yeah, I should dust off my Jimbo Fisher bullet point. I posted after they lost to App State, I posted a video on Jimbo Fisher and what a failure he was for a number of reasons. And people seem to like that. It got a lot of views. So maybe we'll dust that one off and I'll update it.
Yeah, it just keeps getting worse and worse by the season. You know what they should do, Mark? Is they should trade Mario Cristobal for Jimbo Fisher, just straight up trade.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, the big difference there is, of course, Jimbo. This is 5 years now. Mario Cristobal, hey, it's his first season.
I know, Mark. I know. But it's pretty bad at both of them.
Yeah, it is. They're equally bad. That's why they played one of the uglier football games of the year when they played each other.
Yeah, that was a great game, by the way. The fact that we got to saw that spectacle this year was a blessing in disguise, Mark.
And at the time, they both actually thought that they were good football teams and that game was a big game.
Well, that's all I got for you. I like the helmet display behind you. You got LSU, Kent State, and Oregon State back to back to back. I'm not sure that was on purpose, but I like that helmet this side.
I taped a number of things today and whatever teams I had up there. Actually, I just got off a Nebraska live stream, and it was Nebraska and Wisconsin since they're playing this week. And then I was just grabbing helmets, throwing them up there. Just went with no theme tonight, just kind of a random mishmash. Yeah, that's it tonight.
Mark, the theme is greatness.
Yeah.
That's what the theme should be, is greatness.
Yeah. I like to give, we'll sit down LSU. We talk about them all the time. I like to give, props to some teams that, we don't talk about and don't hear about. Let's get Nevada up there. We also have Washington State down here. That's a lot of Pac-12 love up there, but that's okay. That's a good looking helmet, top shelf right there.
Yeah, Nevada's been riding the struggle bus this year.
Ooh, they have been.
Yeah, I know. They got the tall guy quarterback, but man, their play has been 2-8, 3-7, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Tough year.
And we were collecting quite a few helmets there for a few months, and I'll remind everyone, we'll get back to that. I'll get you an address that we can get some more helmets up there because, I don't like to go without an Iowa helmet on our Iowa show, or there's a few others, West Virginia, but yeah. All right, man.
Somebody pointed out in the chat, how come the clock behind you never works?
Yeah, the clock behind me. So this is don't want to delve into my personal life too much, but I'm in a bit of a transitional state here, so we're not too concerned with the decor here, and we hope to build out a nice set at some point. I don't know exactly when that's going to be. I'm kind of needed at the time for various family issues and situations. So yeah, that's why you've seen my decor change since midsummer. But yeah, the clock's back there. There it is. All right. DeReal left us. Okay, he's gone. Good to talk to him, as always. Yeah, so we've got a USC show coming up at 11 o'clock Eastern time, and that is 8 o'clock on the Pacific Coast. Let's all enjoy USC football talk with Matt Zemek, and we got a special guest with Tony Siracusa from Last Word on College Football to talk one of the great rivalries in college football. Let's get ready for that one. Let's do it. Let's get ready early for the USC live show. Tim, Tony, if you're around, LBC Trojan Rick. I don't believe we've got any UCLA fans. Do we have UCLA fans in the chat right now? USC, UCLA. This is the aesthetically best looking game in college football. I will say that. It's all opinion, of course, but that's my opinion. It is the aesthetically most pleasing game in college football, especially when they play as they are this season at the Rose Bowl. You got the Rose Bowl, which is the most picturesque setting in college football. At least on television, it is. I've not been there. I've been by there. I've never been to the Rose Bowl. I've been around the Rose Bowl, never went to the Rose Bowl, either to a game or inside the stadium or anything like that. But I've been around the Rose Bowl. But to watch a game at the Rose Bowl, and then you put those two iconic color combinations and displays on there. This is, I say this all the time, this is the most beautiful game in college football with the combination of the jerseys. It's just amazing. It's amazing. There he is. There's Rick. How's it going, Rick?
Hey, good evening, Mark. I heard you called. I'm making some dinner tonight, making some meatballs, and
nice.
I heard USC, UCLA. Yeah, I have to come represent. I love it.
Did you hear how I explained?
I did.
This game. It is I grew up at a time when, Ohio State and Michigan meant everything to me. And then whether I had to sulk through the next, rest of the day, or I was celebrating, just going straight into a USC UCLA game with a 3:30 kickoff Eastern time that was the doubleheader of doubleheaders for me as a kid. That was great.
I can reminisce with those days. Great teams. But let's take a look at this year.
Yeah.
And love your show. I really I like your top 25 that makes sense. As we move closer and closer to the end of the season, it makes more and more sense, whether you agree with it or you don't. I think you're spot on. And let's talk about those Bruins.
Yeah.
Why don't we? There was people on Twitter last week bitching and moaning. Hope I can say that word. But before I start, hey, much respect to a fallen warrior in Jeff Webster.
Yes.
And I thought that was very classy what you posted on Twitter. God rest his soul. Roll Tide. The rest of the year and forever for Jeff Webster. But UCLA, their fans got ahead of themselves, wondering why they were ranked behind USC. And I agree, they shouldn't have been ranked behind USC. But that is the knuckleheads that are on the committee that have their agenda. Because if you looked at it, they had beaten Washington. They had beat a Utah team. They had 2 quality wins. Ole Miss had a loss to LSU.
Yeah.
And they beat Kentucky, but we saw what Kentucky's all about. And I think, DeReal kind of just exemplified it by talking about Kentucky basketball can't figure out who the backup quarterback is, deflects about Vandy, and has to talk about the Pac-12 because the Pac-12 is doing great this year, right? And if we want to use the transitive property about how well BYU did this year or last year against the Pac-12, hey, how about the Pac-12 going against your mighty Big Ten? Yes, it is the Big Ten West, but Washington State did beat Wisconsin, and Washington beat Michigan State. I understand Michigan State's in the East, was in last place, but I believe they traveled to Champaign and beat the number 1 Big Ten West school in Illinois. Did I get my facts straight on that one, Mark?
Yes.
Okay.
Minnesota beat Colorado.
All right. So the Pac-12 was 2-1. Thank you for pointing that out. TCU also beat Colorado.
Sure.
And so did USC, even losing 3-2 in the first quarter when there's some UCLA scribes that were getting on Twitter. Fortunately, football games are 60 minutes. I think Georgia can attest to that after having a struggle at Missouri. Would you agree on that one?
Absolutely.
All right. So talking about UCLA.
Yes.
If anybody tuned in to our Pac-12 live chat show last Wednesday, it's on tape. Go to the 42nd minute. I basically let everybody know that UCLA, hey, they weren't going to do it, that DTR was going to have a DTR moment, and Jaden DeLora, who balled out against USC, was going to show up, and that Arizona would win. Just when you thought UCLA was UCLA like a ghost, they disappeared. And I called for a 3-point victory by Arizona. And my co-hosts, Tim and Tony and Chris, Mr. TBM, they were laughing. They went off the rails. And what happened?
Good call.
Okay. So it's one thing for DeReal to come on here and say, hey, you know what? I don't know. Auburn beating Alabama. No. 19-point dog on the road on the Mark Rogers Voice of College Football, Pac-12 Live chat show. Hey, man, I call it for real. I also predicted on the Pac-12 show on tape that Notre Dame would go into Syracuse and beat the Qs and also play Clemson and beat Clemson. So, hey, man, but I did screw up one on Colorado. I gave the Buffs too much credit one week, and I messed up on that.
But Rick, we're going to have to add your selections, your locks here to the Patreon display and get some more folks in the Patreon because these predictions are going to be the attraction.
Well, we do it a little bit differently on the Pac-12. So we're just doing it straight up, not against the spread. So I know yours are against the spread. I do it
straight up too. I do them both.
What's that?
I do both the straight up and against the spread. 11-6, same shameless plug, folks. 11-6 against the spread this past weekend.
That's very good. That's very good. So getting to this Pac-12 showdown, SC and UCLA.
Yeah.
Both of our defenses are atrocious. We're injured with Gentry, but what UCLA showed me or didn't show me against Arizona tells me all I need to know. And I'm sorry, but DTR cannot compete with Caleb Williams when it comes down to mano-a-mano, touchdown to touchdown. He showed me everything. I don't know if you saw the end of that game or saw highlights from that the last drive against Arizona. Did you take a look at that?
I was sitting right here and had it on. I couldn't really analyze it necessarily.
Well, he had a third down play. There was probably 12 seconds left. Jake Bobo was running a fade route to the end zone left sideline. And now, granted, Bobo was a little bit too close to the left sideline, didn't give the best position to DTR, but DTR didn't lead the ball to keep it in bounds. Okay.
Yes.
There's a mistake. Last play of the
That's a
game.
bad mistake when you don't give your receiver a chance. You wait
Absolutely.
for the play. You might as well not even throw the ball.
And Bobo, the dude's what, 6'5"? I mean,
Yeah.
come on. Take advantage of his height. The last play of the game, anything can happen. They're at their 40-yard line. He's struggling. He's doing what he does. He created space. He's using his legs, but he's not the type of guy that really can get his legs set and throw with accuracy. And Bobo had beat like 3 guys, and he was scrambling and he was moving to his left, and a good pass. He also oops, sorry about
We
that.
lost you there for a second, Rick.
Okay.
You were in the middle of your DTR description on the final play.
Yeah, he was scrambling. He didn't get his feet set, and he's not the most accurate passer. And it was unfortunate. He hit Bobo, but Bobo, the ball wasn't where it needed to be, and UCLA lost. I just see Caleb Williams outdueling DTR, and it doesn't matter that it's at the Rose Bowl. It's here nor there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I saw UCLA for most of the game against Oregon, and that's the game that Oregon really put in my mind at the time that I thought that they were probably the best and most complete team in the Pac-12. With what's going on with USC on the defensive side of the ball, and then seeing everything that Oregon did against really everybody since Georgia, but specifically that was the game that I thought, okay, this Oregon outfit's for real. And I still think they're for real. They just got caught in a situation Dan Lanning made made a bad call. Bo Nix had to leave the game. Give Washington a ton of credit, especially on the road at Autzen Stadium, one of the more difficult places to play. Anyway, that was my best look at UCLA. Of course, we really couldn't get any read on them until they played Washington at the Rose Bowl. That was really their, I went on all that week saying, UCLA, welcome to the 2022 college football season. After the 3 non-conference games and the Colorado game, I think UCLA's, I think they have an athletic defense. They're not really good. Now, I haven't seen them play their most recent games, Arizona State, and some of those games, but they seem to have been playing similar games to what USC is playing against the lesser teams in the conference. I know a little bit more about USC, having seen them play Utah, Oregon State. Those are really the 2 games that I really saw them play for most of the game. But I think USC's a slightly better team. I would like to know that Eric Gentry was back in the lineup for this game to be more confident in a pick. Of course, Travis Dye, missing him is a big loss. He's an integral part of the offense.
Yeah, he is. And both of those guys that you mentioned, Gentry and Dye, are really the heartbeat of this team. And they get a lot of the credit for helping Lincoln Riley and the coaching staff change this culture. And so, Travis Dye, it's unfortunate what happened. He's a baller. But he'll still be in the locker room, and he'll be an emotional leader, just like Gentry's been while he's been absent. And we'll see what happens with Gentry. I don't expect to hear anything until game time. Why disclose anything? But he's had about a month. Hopefully, if he can give it a go, he'll give it a go. And we have some good backup running backs with Austin Jones, Rayleigh Brown, and Darwin Barlow. It was good to see Darwin Barlow get some carries against Colorado. He's been kind of buried on the depth chart. He was a transfer last year from TCU who split the carries with Keontae Ingram, the transfer from Texas. And so he scored a touchdown. Miller Moss came up in Miller time, fourth quarter, got a couple touchdown drives. So that was good to see as well. The defense is shaky, but I like the chemistry on this team. USC has a lot to play for. Actually, there's no pressure on USC. There's all the pressure on UCLA. What they just did against Arizona and really embarrassed themselves on a national scale. because now everybody can laugh at the Pac-12, and you add in what Oregon did. Oregon losing at home. Hey, Ben, I know you said I wish Rick can go ahead and get buffered again so he doesn't have to hear me talk, but hey, let's just get it out there. Oregon does what Oregon does. It's not Stanford this year. It's Washington, your hated rival. I know Eric is having a hard time coping right now. The tears and the beers are happening. He can't believe what's going on with Oregon. It's really hurt those guys, and I get it, because how could you lose at home to Washington when you were looking forward 1 week to get revenge on what Utah did to you? They took you to the woods shed twice with a 38 and a 38, and you've got Dan Lanning now, and you're looking forward to that game, and you forget about Washington.
Rick, you think there's more pressure on UCLA than USC?
Oh, absolutely.
USC playing for a Pac-12 title and to stay in playoff contention?
Come on. It's UCLA. It's UCLA. And those that don't know, they don't know.
Okay.
That's our house. Okay, they can't even sell tickets to that stadium. You wait until you see the colors there on Saturday at 5:00, and it's going to be beautiful. I love that Joel Klatt and his microphone buddy Gus Johnson, one of your favorite commentators, I'm sure, announcers, is going to be there. But Joel Klatt has this little antagonistic relationship with USC, and I love him because he's an honest guy. He knows we're overrated, and he brings it out, and that's fine. But now he's going to get to see for himself, and he's going to have to give us credit. Because, hey, we're back, and people love to hate SC. Check out your chat. I know Ben hates USC, and this is beautiful because we're back now, and we're the only team that they're talking about in the Pac-12 that has an outside shot to get in the college football playoff. Not that I care, but, we're this team that was nobody last year. And now you need us, Pac-12, and that's a beautiful thing.
Well, the Pac-12 needs you right now. They're only going to get you for another 2 seasons, 1+.
Yep.
So, well, we've got more on USC and UCLA, folks, at 11 Eastern on the USC channel. So join us there. It's going to be a good time for an hour over there.
Hey,
Rick?
and tune in to our show on Wednesday, the Pac-12 Live show. That should be really lively. We'll have some more predictions, and then you'll get my prediction for SC and UCLA.
And if I had a banner, I would put it up. So please listen to us, folks. Yes, it's the Pac-12 show. There it is. Pac-12 show coming up Wednesday, 7:30 Pacific time. So get on over there on the main channel or all the Pac-12 related channels, USC, Oregon. Absolutely.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mark. Have a great show.
Rick. Appreciate you being here. And again, USC Live, that's at 11 o'clock Eastern. So 2 hours from now, that means I can work on more power rankings. We released the ACC today and also the Big Ten. I'll get on the Big 12, the Pac-12. And let's see who else. Oh, the SEC. Yes. I almost forgot about the SEC. How could I make that mistake? All right, folks. See you in 2 hours here at the Voice of College Football. Thanks for being here.